Have you ever been to Limavady? Now, if you don't come from around there or nearabouts, I'm guessing the answer is possibly no, or maybe once or twice. Population, 11,000, and sitting somewhere between Coleraine and Derry. It's a very pleasant market town, no doubt about that, in northwest Northern Ireland, and it's well worth a detour to visit if you haven't been there. But it's not quite, is it, the centre of the universe? And yet today on Trading Up, we're going to meet someone who has made it so. And we're going to talk about what I'll call the Tierney theory, or the mantras of Martin, perhaps. Because today's guest has built an incredible relationship with global titans of business, from Japan to Spain, and has now got a way of business that is a template for anyone who wants to find out more and learn, and hence his place of work has become a destination for those eager to learn about how to have long-term growth. It's a kind of Disneyland for entrepreneurs. So prepare to meet Martin Tierney. Hello and welcome to Trading Up. This is the business podcast from the Irish News, produced in association with EY. And we're also all about kind of learning, digging deep so we can learn from people in business for other people in business. And I'm delighted today. The person in the seat with me is Martin Tierney of Seeding Matters. Martin, you're very welcome. Now, do you get that intro, the Disneyland for entrepreneurs? How have you done that in Limavady? Let me just recap. Seeding Matters is your business, right?
Yeah.
Turnover in the group now of about 26 million, is that right?
Yeah.
200 odd employees across the group. But I mean, Limavady isn't exactly the centre of the universe, and yet you have got people coming to your place of work to find out how you do things.
Well, I take issue with that because Limavady is a very important place. And we're actually not from Limavady, we're from outside of Limavady. So we're outside somewhere that's outside somewhere else, you know.
So you're really, okay, so you've taken this place that not even in Limavady and you've made it the centre of the universe.
Yeah, like they say, Craggy Island is not exactly on any maps, you know. Yeah, we're very proud of where we're from. We're from, just 15 minutes outside Limavady, 20 minutes from Derry City, and out in the countryside, and started a business very much like lots of other businesses in this part of the world. Had the crux of an idea and just started at the back of the house, more or less.
And it's you and the family. So who's involved in the business then? Just give us a quick recap.
Yeah, so my mother is an occupational therapist, and the very origin of what we're doing is she needed products for the patients that she was caring for. My father did construction and building. He was a joiner by trade, and he made a chair for one of my mother's patients. And he made a second and made a third. And then my brothers and I wonder, are there more OTs in the world than just our mother? And it turns out there's quite a few more. So that's where it began. Unfortunately, my father has died, but my mother is very much the clinical soul of the company. My two brothers and I work together, and our sister Louise, who's 10 years younger than me, is working with us as well. So very much a family business.
And you have learned from these titans of business. I want to get into that in more detail. It's quite remarkable. Just tell us the names first of all, and we'll come back to that a little bit later on.
Yeah, it's something that we've done quite a lot of times, where we've got some problem or some big issue, and we said, I wonder who would know something about that. Sure, we'll write them a letter, we'll send them an email. So the next time we're there, we'll go and knock the door, and it's helped in some ways. If we fast forward about 8 or 10 years into our story, we were manufacturing these chairs for people with very complex disabilities, and we were always making a good chair, but the process of getting there wasn't always the easiest. It was a stressful manufacturing environment. It was a bit disorganized, a bit chaotic. And we thought, who's the best? Oh, it's Toyota. Okay, who led the turnaround in Toyota? Let's contact those people. So my brother Ryan is hugely passionate about lean. My brother Jonathan...
Lean, just to explain for those maybe aren't associated, that's a way of working, really.
Yeah, lean, it's a misunderstood concept. For us, what it is, it's continuous improvement, which originates in a deep respect for people and for resources and for your customer and your colleagues and the building and the environment. So if we deeply respect all of these things, we will strive to make it better for them. And what Toyota did is they took this deep Japanese philosophy and they made it into a business process. And Toyota have become arguably the best company in the world, but certainly the best manufacturer in the world.
So you essentially from outside of Limavady, the craggy island, as you've said, of Northern Ireland, rock up, essentially knock on the door of these guys who lead the best manufacturing business in the world, and somehow they take you in and tell you their secrets.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. That's what happened. So my brother Jonathan is commercial director of the group. He's all into sales. Ryan, operations director, and just loves all things lean and manufacturing. And I'm managing director. And the three of us jumped in a plane and went to Japan. And we went into the Toyota factory, and it was like watching art or poetry or a ballet or something. The most beautiful thing you've ever seen. All these thousands of moving pieces all coming together to form this car at the end of it. And we met two guys, Mr. Amazawa and Mr. Umemura. Mr. Amazawa ran the Georgetown, Kentucky plant for Toyota, the biggest, most important plant they have. He was a president in Lexus after that. Mr. Umemura is the president of Toyota's most important tier 2 supplier. So you were telling me earlier that you have a Toyota vehicle, and the seats in your father's car were made in Mr. Umemura's factory.
And what age are these gentlemen? Yes, and I'll tell you a bit more about that car in a minute. So what age are we talking about? The business they've seen, what age are they now?
84 and 86 years old.
Okay, so these guys have been around the block, and they have led that incredible company through all of its kind of changes and its processes that, as you say, are an example to anybody in manufacturing across the world. And so to mention I did mention the car, and the reason I mentioned it is my late father was very proud of his Lexus, which was the one he has or had was one of the first hybrid cars, and he loved it. And so when he died, I inherited this car. It's now hasn't got a huge mileage considering its age, about 15 years old, but I don't know, 150,000 miles on the clock or something, but it's still driving impeccably. It has a suite of features in it that, are way beyond when it was built. And so when you mentioned these guys and the quality of Toyota and Lexus, I get it, because I've got a car that, many other cars would be at the scrap heap by now, but this one's going strong.
Absolutely. They've got this incredible attention to detail. When we were in the trip, we sat right up in the front of the bus. Every time they spoke, we were hanging on every word. And I think they maybe recognized that, and they said, started to talk to us more, engage with us more. And we invited them to our factory in Limavady. So these two guys arrived, and we picked them up from the airport, took them out for dinner. And this, 84, 86 years old, this is 10 o'clock at night, and they're looking at their watches. I'm thinking, they're probably jet lagged. We should have brought them home hours ago. And they said, what time are we going to the factory? I said, well, we can go tomorrow. We didn't come the whole way from Japan to sit in a restaurant. We want to see your factory. So they arrived at the factory at midnight. We got a bottle of Bushmills whiskey, and the two of them went around the factory drinking whiskey, pointing out all the things that we were doing wrong until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
Just a childlike passion for what they're doing, and we reorganised and changed the whole factory as a result.
What would you pay, for that sort of consultancy? Is there a price you could put on that?
Oh, you couldn't. When we were in Japan with these guys, the people from behind the reception in the hotel came out into the foyer and bowed deeply when these two men arrived into the hotel, because they're just revered figures in Japan. There's a concept called Ono's precepts. So there's the Ono's circle. Taiichi Ono is this father of Toyota production system. And when they were in our factory, I said, oh yeah, when we talk about Ono's circle, and he said, oh yeah, I remember working with Mr. Ono. I really liked him.
It's just, that's a name drop,
Yeah, he was friends with him and studied under him. Yeah. So it was amazing, an amazing experience for us.
It's incredible stuff. And I suppose we'll get a bit more into what that actually means, the process and so on, what you've done with it. But I think just for people who are listening to this and thinking, who I can approach to get advice from, may not be as far away as Japan, might be somebody who's down the road or somebody they've admired in business nearby. Is it just simply about asking, being polite, making the right approach? Has that worked for you?
Absolutely. I've seen it time and time again. Someone said the higher you go in an organisation of value, the nicer the people become. And it certainly rings true in my experiences. They're just genuine, nice people that wanted to help. And seen lots of examples of that. But for Mr. Amazawa and Mr. Umemura in particular, in Japan, they have this real thing where they want to win as Japan. They've got a real community spirit where Toyota opened the doors to Honda and Mitsubishi and Daihatsu and Hitachi, and they allow all these other Japanese companies to come and learn from them. Competitors, yes, and other subcontractors and other people in industry as a general, because they want Japan to improve. So when we came back here, they said, make sure you share this knowledge. That's all we want to be paid. Your payment is to allow someone else to learn what you have learned. And so since then, probably for the last 10 years, we have opened our doors and we have allowed lots of other companies from around the country and in different countries to come and see what we're doing. And our goal for that is just to improve and show what we have done. Not that we're perfect or brilliant or anything, but we've done lots of things good. And when these other companies come in, we learn from them and they learn from us, and it improves society and improves industry as a whole.
That's really interesting. And so that's your motivation. They've kind of schooled you and they've said, we want you to school others. And you're passing that way of working, that philosophy on.
Absolutely. We stayed in a hotel in Japan, and one of the hotels was in its 8th generation of family ownership. 8th generation. I couldn't tell you back any more than 3 or maybe 4 generations in my family, but they had a hotel that was 8 generations old. And it's amazing to see the longevity of that, the long-term thinking, the stability that they're able to offer to their colleagues and their customers, just that real long-term approach in things, caring for something for the next generation. And again, we're very passionate about that. We're in a family business ourselves, we're a young business, we're 3 young brothers, but we recognize that we would love this to continue for many decades to come. And we have worked and set up a structure to allow that to happen. Because the best business, I think, is a family business run well, but the worst business can be a family business run badly.
We've heard many of those stories, exactly. Well, let's go back then and talk about the family, and we'll get to what that could mean in a business sense then. So growing up, you left school to move into this business, but what was growing up like for you? Your mum, an OT, your father in the construction industry. Was it, a kind of typical, kind of semi-rural upbringing then?
Yeah, very much so. Like, we spent every Saturday out working with our father, from we were no age at all. Maybe health and safety things weren't as big back then, but he used to take us out of school for a week at a time and go to a construction site with him. We'd go and live for a week in Dublin with him and stay in a hotel and work in some job somewhere, and it was amazing. It was brilliant learning. I don't ever remember him sitting down and saying, Martin, I want you to listen to this. But it was learning by watching and learning by doing and seeing what he's doing, how he interacts with the supplier, how he interacts with the customer. That's was our training ground, really. And so, yeah, working with him was a big part of our learning. And then we set up our first business. We were 7, 8 and 9 years old, and we sold turf. I don't know, do you know what turf are? Do you?
I do. I've certainly, but yeah, I'm a city boy. But yeah, no, I know what turf is. But I know it's a family from, both County Down and also South Derry. So yes, I know what turf is. But yes, not exactly, I suppose, wasn't a business I was likely to set up in South Belfast, 40 years ago. But you were an entrepreneur in turf. Then tell us about that.
We were turf tycoons.
Yeah.
I think we were probably 7, 8 and 9 years old, or maybe 8, 9 and 10 years old. But we started to cut turf. Or a friend of our father's had a machine, and we paid him to cut a few hours of turf.
So how do you get an edge at that age? Let's face it, turf is pretty common. There's plenty of people cutting turf, selling turf. How did you get the edge then as these youngsters willing to work for nothing? That was the start, yeah.
You have exposed yourself for not having ever worked with turf.
Nobody wants to, is basically what you're telling me.
Nobody wants to do it. It's the most horrible job.
It's not all a Seamus CD poem then, no?
It's definitely not. So yeah, it's not the nicest of work, but we did it. Young children went up, turned turf, put them in bags, put up a sign at the road, put signs up in the shops, and we were selling turf for £1 a bag.
Right.
And we were flying, selling an order of 20 bags or 30 bags was a big deal, And I remember her mother taking us to JGB Sports, and I said, Mom, could I get them new trainers? And she says, oh, Martin, they're 45 bags of turf, And I said, no, I'm okay. So the value of the labour that went into getting things was something that we really deeply understood.
I could imagine, yeah. So that's a really good grounding. And then tell me about your mum and her business, effectively her job, her career, occupational therapist. She's working with people who have all sorts of complex needs and mobility issues and so on.
Yeah.
And you kind of wonder, is there a way that you can help her out? Is that kind of the genesis of it then?
Absolutely. She came home one day and she said to my father, I was out with a patient today, and if only I could have solved their needs. This person's stuck in bed, they've got muscular contractures. I was so angry with myself leaving the house that I wasn't able to solve their needs. And my father said, well, surely we could make something. Surely we could make a chair to suit that person's needs. The next person that she had was a bariatric person, over 25 stone weight capacity, and he made a chair for them. And Jonathan, Ryan, myself, we were, young at this stage, and we thought, I wonder, could we make a business from that? Could we make these chairs and supply?
You got sick of the turf by this stage, I take it.
We were well sick of the turf, yeah. We were 17, 18 and 19 years old, and I left school and they both left work, and we just started making chairs kind of there and then.
What year is that then?
2007, I was 17, yeah.
Okay, 2007. Well, that's kind of an ominous time because we're just heading into a big financial crisis across the world, and particularly in Ireland. Did that have any impact on you?
Yeah, well, we had no money. We had no money to start with. So the first chair that we made, the first thing we did was go out and sell it so that we could come back and make another and go out and sell it. And that's really how it started. Very shortly after it, Jonathan and I moved to England and we set up distributors and started providing to care homes and hospitals in England. A few years after that, I moved to Canada to set up distributors in Canada and America. Jonathan went to Australia. And so really from 2010 to 2020, that was our plan. Ryan designing products with our mother and making the factory better and better. Jonathan and I out and around the world setting up distributors.
How did you sort of capitalize that? How did you finance that? If you got a good sale, great. But if you were starting off on the basis of sell one, make another one,
yeah.
How did you actually finance that growth? Because that's often a huge challenge.
Yeah, so we financed it ourselves. Everything that we've done, we've financed ourselves, and I suppose we've been conservative in a way. We've reinvested everything we have back in the business, to making a better factory, making better facilities, to doing more clinical research to prove the efficacy of our products, to investing in new machinery. And we've done that ourselves, and it's all been organic, natural growth up until that point before we started doing acquisitions.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in a second. But so in terms of the growth and the scale of the business, you mentioned a couple of the markets. So where are you selling at the moment, and where does the business sit today? Obviously, it's far away from make a chair, sell a chair, put the money back in. You're doing bigger deals now. And
Yeah.
what sort of deals are you doing?
Yeah, so today, Seating Matters is still a very important company for us, and it's kind of the flagship company in our group. But today we've got Tierco Group, and we've Tierco Investments off to the side. We have Tierco Healthcare, and then Tierco Manufacturing. And within healthcare, then Seating Matters is the genesis of that. But in the last few years, we have bought some other healthcare companies. Really, we started to look at the patient and see what other problems can we solve for that person. So we bought a company called PosiCare, which makes bathing and showering equipment. We bought a company, A1, which is doing clinical training for risk reduction for caregivers providing care. Seating Matters is making chairs. Advanced Seating is renting those products into hospitals or nursing homes. So we're really looking at the nursing home as a group, or the hospital as a whole building, and saying, what needs do those patients have? How can we help them reduce their costs or improve the flow of patients through the hospital? And doing a package of sales and rentals of equipment to help manage that.
So the rental bit's interesting. So somebody a home or a hospital doesn't have to commit to a huge capital investment. They can do a mix, presumably, then do they?
Yeah.
What ways it kind of break down? And what would be the nature of, say, one of the biggest deals you've done?
Well, there's a hospital we're working with right now in England, and they have about 200 chairs, and they're working on another 200. So it'll be 400 chairs in a 900-bed hospital. And what we have worked with that facility to discover is that they had a higher than average falls rate, patients falling, higher than average pressure, injuries. and slower than average discharges from hospital.
And just the pressure injuries, it's people who are maybe bedbound and have injuries then because they're lying in one position and so on, and trying to solve that.
A bed sore would have
Yeah.
been called a pressure ulcer, pressure injury.
Yeah.
And these are extremely costly things. Like a pressure ulcer can cost £16,000 per patient per month.
Wow.
If a person falls, here in Northern Ireland, if a person falls in hospital, before they are discharged out into the community, 4 caregivers have to be employed to watch that person 24 hours a day. It takes 4 caregivers out of the care system. Those 4 caregivers, their job is to watch the patient. They're not allowed to do personal care. They're not allowed to do medications. They're not even allowed to intervene if the person's falling. The job is to watch the patient and to raise the alarm. The cost of that is extraordinary. And the impact on healthcare is that it pulls 4 people out of the caring workforce, if you like, because they've now moved into this observing role. So what we've done is we can go in with a chair which is proven to reduce falls. So provide that patient with the chair, and then they don't fall. And allow those 4 caregivers to go elsewhere and do a very productive work in the care home. We go into this hospital, which is now 400 chairs out of 900 patients, and provide them the bariatric chair for the bariatric patient when they need it. And when they don't, take it away and give it to someone else that does need it. So we're right-sizing the equipment for what the hospital needs or what the nursing home needs, and providing clinical training and clinical advice and clinical monitoring to the facility. And it's having an enormous impact on improving the quality of care and getting people out of hospital quicker to where they want to be, out in their own home again.
So it's a much more holistic approach than you're taking. In a sense, somebody might be in a manufacturing business. Maybe they're making a certain product and they think that's the product the customer wants.
Yeah.
But you're sort of, it seems to me that what you're saying is, well, look, let's not assume that's the product the customer wants or needs. Let's keep finding out what they need, what are they telling us, what their problems are.
Yeah.
And we'll come up with solutions.
Yes.
Make new products, or we'll give them the right mix of products. Is that kind of the philosophy then?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's big hospitals like that in different parts of the world where we are in the hospital every single day. And we're going in and we're saying, right, how many patients do you have with a dense stroke? How many patients have falls risk? How many patients are, overweight, or many patients are A, B, C, D, E condition? And then we're right-sizing the equipment and away finding solutions for them. So we're really partnering with the health service. Instead of just selling them a chair, it's getting them the right equipment at the right time for the right patient.
And how important is it to get that match? I think we were chatting before, and you mentioned in your earlier days that you had a stellar salesperson, but you had to let that person go.
Yeah.
Tell us that story, because that, to me, when you told me that before, that just seemed like, whoa, that was a big decision, but a very big strategic decision.
Yeah, we had only started maybe a year or 2 years, and we had a bunch of people working in our factory. We had lots of problems, but sales was a big one. We had to get chairs out, and we hired this guy, great salesman from another company, knew the industry, was getting loads of sales for us. And then we discovered that he didn't do the right thing by a particular patient. And I went and saw the patient, met the family, met everyone involved, and realised, I probably didn't do the right thing there.
And just to be clear, what that means is somebody's, you want your salespeople to go and find the right piece of equipment for the right need.
Absolutely.
And this was a case where somebody had been sold something that they didn't need or wasn't right for them.
Wasn't right for them.
And it was an expensive piece of equipment, presumably none of these.
Absolutely. We started 2 new people this week, and the first thing that we told them, if we cannot help the patient, tell them that and point them somewhere where they can be helped.
Okay.
That's first and foremost.
So you don't try and contrive at
Absolutely
any stage?
Not. And that story, so this guy sold something where he shouldn't have sold something. He should have said, look, I don't think this is right. Here's ABC company that could help you. Let me point you in the direction. Let me set up the appointment for you. Let me invite them in and let them do it, and I'll step out. He didn't do that, and we got rid of him straight away. We just ended that relationship. And it was like 30% of our sales at that time. It was like a huge hit to us. But it was more important that we could trust everyone going into someone's home to get them a chair like I would trust them with my own grandmother. And
was there much of it, be it internally, when you were thinking about that in your own head or with other family members, when you're thinking, we've got 30% of our sales tied up with this one individual, we let them go, we're going to have a big mountain to climb?
Not really. It was a very easy decision. It was the consequences were challenging for us to deal with. We had to go and replace that person with 2 more people and try and get orders back because we have a hungry factory that needs fed all the time. But the decision to do it was pretty simple. Pretty simple. We have a thing we call it our DNA. In order for someone to join us, the price of getting in the door is the person has to be DNA, driven by growth, because we're growing and expanding, and it's we have big ambitions. N is to never give up, because what we're doing is hard, and we want people that'll work hard to find solutions for it. But the A is to have a servant's heart. So if a person is driven by growth and will never give up, but doesn't have a servant's heart, we don't want them.
And so where did that come from, that DNA, the servant's heart? Where did you come up with that?
It was really, as we started to grow, we've now over 200 people in the group, we can't have that personal connection with every interaction of the company, Like we've suppliers arriving in trucks today, we've got chairs leaving, we've got people working while we're sleeping in Australia, and we can't be there on every interaction. So what we thought is, well, let's make a set of rules. Rule A to Z of here's all the things you can do and here's all the things you can't do. But you can't legislate for all those things. So then we said, well, look, let's set principles. And the principles that we stand on is DNA, driven by growth, never giving up, and having a servant's heart. And under that then, there's about 10 more principles that kind of explain that in more detail. But if someone comes to me and says, Martin, big problem, I've made a huge mistake, this is terrible, but I did it because it was DNA. I'm like, okay, fine. Too bad that it didn't work out, but I appreciate that you did it in line with DNA, so yeah, that's grand.
Yeah.
But if the mistake is, I actually forgot about the D, or I forgot about the N, I forgot about the A, that's why the mistake happened, well, that's kind of not forgivable.
There's the Warren Buffett quote. What's the one about losing money versus...
Yeah, lose money and I'll be understanding, lose reputation and we'll be ruthless,
So so for you, and maybe this is what you'll be telling any other business, is the reputation is the key thing.
Absolutely.
Not short-term gain.
Doing the right thing. Back to that Japanese philosophy of respect. If we deeply respected the lorry driver that's delivering things into our factory, if we deeply respected that man, how would we want him to be treated? Well, we'd let him use our bathroom, we'd give him free food, he could use our coffee machine, he can use our bathroom. We'll have someone to drive the forklift from 7 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening, so he doesn't have to wait. If we deeply respected the lorry driver, that's what we'd do. And that's what we do. If we deeply respected the customer, we would get them the best product at the best price with the white glove delivery. We would move the furniture in the house for them. We have a guy that works with us, took a chair to Coventry Football Club and got all the players in Coventry Football Club to sign the side of the chair because the young person using it had a head injury, spinal injury, but was a huge Coventry fan. So the seating specialist in that area took the chair, got them all to sign the chair by the club, and delivered it to the person's house because he deeply respected that patient. And that's how we want people to behave.
That's wonderful. And do you find that because you've communicated this clearly to everybody in your team, that they respond with their own initiative like that?
Yeah. Just this morning, I see on LinkedIn, our partner in Australia is called Adrian, and he's a fantastic guy. And I just saw it on LinkedIn this morning. A patient had their chair was in their wheelchair accessible van, and the van was stolen while the patient was, the hairdressers or whatever they were doing. The chair and the van were stolen. Lexus, back to the values, Lexus gave them a new car, and Adrian gave them a new chair free of charge.
Right. Uh-huh.
And nobody called us to say, do you think we should do this? It was just, well, if it's the right thing to do, go ahead and do it.
And so people are empowered. So how do they know? How do you communicate this among everybody, and how do you sort of maintain that kind of corporate culture?
We do something very kind of special, something we've kind of become infamous for. We do this morning meeting every morning in each of our sites. And the morning meeting is everyone who's in that building is standing in this big room, or if you're out and about on the road, you can join by Teams or Zoom. And the meeting starts with stretches and music and gratitude, what I'm grateful for. A little bit about me. I'm a new start in the company. Here's my wife, here's my children, here's my name, here's where I grew up, here's the football team I support. It talks about, your favorite quote of the day, and then we pick up our book, The Vivid Vision, and we'll take one of the principles. And whoever's leading the meeting will say, oh, the principle there of investing for long-term success. Here's what that means for me. You know, I started in my football Paddy that works with us. Paddy takes 4 football teams. And I started this football team and they weren't that great. And I invested this and done that. But I think in 3 years' time, we'll be able to win. And that's what investing for long-term success means for me. So that's what we do in the morning meeting, reinforcing that every single day so that everyone has got total clarity on what the behaviours are that we thrive on, and also the behaviours that will lead to a swift departure.
So, yeah, you mentioned your book, The Vivid Vision. It's almost like the company Bible, if you like. Rules to live by, the kind of values to instill in people. How important is that? And sort of, let's face it, you know, a lot of places have stuff written down, policies, you know, you can access online, go and look up the company HR policy, whatever it is. But you've got this quite glossy kind of manual, brochure, and you have the morning meeting and stuff. Does anybody ever say, we're kind of cynical sometimes in this part of the world as well. Martin, this sounds a bit like a cult or something. What are you up to? Is this a new religion?
Maybe it is, but if you're in a cult, you don't know if you're in a cult.
You're going to determine to make sure it's a good one anyway. Is that the point?
Well, look, you come into Seaton Matters and it's bright and it's beautiful and it's airy and people are laughing and joking and there's good music pumping around the factory and the office. And, you know, tonight a lot of us are going out for food for a team member that's leaving us. And it's a real nice working environment. And, you know, some of the other companies that we've taken over, you know, we're trying to bring that culture into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, you just had a big acquisition. Spare and Metal is a company that many people know well, hugely successful. Great to see that tradition surviving that important company.
Yes.
But I'm assuming it probably has a different culture. You have other ones that you've acquired. How do you integrate a company like that?
So yeah, within healthcare, we're very focused on what can we do to wrap around the patient. Chairs, shower chairs, bathing, clinical training, rental, all of that. And then this other skill that we have of lean manufacturing, we thought, is there another really good manufacturing company local to where we are that we could transform like we have transformed Seating Matters? And when Spare and Metal became available to us, it's the perfect opportunity. Our mother is from Draperstown. We have relatives that work in the business and have worked in the business. It is this long, illustrious history of being started by the local community to provide jobs in a place where there were no jobs, where everyone was emigrating to Canada and Australia. And it's got this amazing history. But, you know, it's 60 years old. There's things have been done the way they've been done because that's the way they've been done. And we're kind of breathing a new lease of life into it. But what we're doing is nothing special, I would argue. All we're doing is going to Jared, who's working in assembly, and saying, Jared, is there anything we could do to help you do your job better? And he says, yeah. He says, these holes don't line up on this thing. And you know, if that machine down there that I don't operate, but the machine that he's operating, if that was recalibrated, these holes might line up and I may not have to drill that. Brilliant, Jared. Go ahead and do that. Or, you know, someone says, well, I think my forklift should be adapted. I think we should change this process. I think we need a new computer system for that. Okay, go ahead and do it. If you think that's what should be done, go ahead and try it. And that's what we're doing differently. It's giving people the freedom to make changes, the freedom to change their process, change how they're working, change the product, because they're the person that knows best. I think in previous times, you know, it was kind of this top-down approach. Don't you move until I come and say that it's okay for you to do it. Our approach is very much, you are the expert in being the editor of a newspaper. Go ahead and do it the way you think it should be done. If I can help you, I'll help you. But you know your job best, and I'm here to support you.
It's that having that faith in people that to devolve responsibility. Subject then, if you've communicated clearly with your values and your vision book and what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Yeah.
But so people can get on with it then without having to constantly refer up some sort of huge chain of command. Is that the idea?
Yes.
And then things move quicker.
Yes. So
Things get done.
Absolutely. So we talk about principles and values. Principles and values, principles and values, principles and values. As long as you're working within that framework, more or less, go ahead and do whatever you like. Now, not saying you go and spend 100,000 and knock down a wall and buy 6 new machines, and within guardrails, of course. But if you go back to Toyota and back to Japan, deep respect for people means giving people autonomy to do what they think is best. And generally, our improvements that all our team members are making are tiny, tiny improvements, little improvements that build one on top of another over many weeks and many months to make an extraordinary difference over a couple of years.
And these days, when you talk about trying to follow a kind of philosophy or look to sort of business leaders, and we think about the most famous business leaders at the moment are probably the tech titans, if you like, from the US, the Elon Musks of this world, or the Jeff Bezoses, or the Mark Zuckerbergs. And maybe those are the cultures that people see more if they're looking online and they're getting the posts on LinkedIn. I don't think I've seen that many posts recently about, Japanese business culture or how that works. But you've chosen that. And how different do you think it is to that much more perhaps brash American, individualistic approach that we probably hear a lot more of? And why would you argue that your approach is better?
Yeah. Well, someone said if your advice excites all your friends, you're probably doing it wrong. I think, what do you want from life? And what do you want from your business? For us, we have a stated goal in our vivid vision that we want the company to be the kind of place you'd want your children to work in. So what decisions could we make today for Owen, who's got 2 boys who are maybe 3 and 5 years old? What could we do today so that in 20 years' time, Owen's child could come and successfully work in our company? That's the kind of life I want. That's the kind of business I want. And that guides our decision. Japan is as close to perfect as you can get, I think. It's a culture of deep respect. They have, stability, peace, security, a lot of continuity in things, long-term thinking. They've got so much right. It's not a perfect country, and none is, but they've got so much right, and that's what we're trying to emulate. How could we make this a better meeting today, so that the company is better, so that Limavady gets better, so that we can have a positive impact on the customers of Spare and Metal or the customers of Tierco Healthcare?
And spreading the word then. So you've now been tasked, because you got this free consultancy from the Japanese leaders, the best in the world, and they've told you to spread the word. You've got people visiting you. Do you see that beginning to happen? Do you get feedback from some of the other companies that have come to see you as to what they're doing? And are they all in manufacturing, or is there a whole range of businesses? Who can learn from you?
Not that they can learn from us. We're happy to show what we're doing, and lots of people take it away. Like, nearly every business, I would say, in Northern Ireland at this stage has been through our doors. From the big ones like Caterpillar or Rolls-Royce were with us a couple of weeks ago, who make aircraft engines.
Rolls-Royce?
Yeah.
And does that make you feel, do you get kind of complacent? I've got Rolls-Royce coming to have a look at what we're up to? Or do you just sort of...
No, because
what keeps you right?
We always ask them that our challenge at the start is, please tell us something that we can be doing better. So we get feedback from people all the time. Say, actually, I noticed that down in that area, and in our business we do that differently. We get some great ideas from it. Now, we're doing a lot of things right, and it's good. It's nice to have Rolls-Royce come to see us. But like the local chip shop in Limavady came up and did a tour and brought all their team up, and they saw some great improvements and gave us some great ideas as well.
You got a better fish and chip on a Friday night now, do you?
So business is big and small. It's really nice to be able to contribute to society, contribute to business, and to help in some way with whatever we can offer.
And when we think about, sometimes when we're talking about business, we talk about business issues, and therefore you end up talking about, say, the economic environment, government incentives, particular challenges, if you like, of say doing business in, say, this part of the world, in Northern Ireland, or in your case, in a particular part of Northern Ireland. But what you're proving really is, and that's why I suppose I laboured the point at the beginning, the fact that you're not in the centre of the universe, you're not in an urban centre, you're not in mainland Europe, but you're proving that you can do it from, location's not the issue, it's kind of attitude that will unlock things for people.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the biggest factor in the outcomes that we'll have in our business or the success of the business is not some big macroeconomic policy or tariff or whatever. It's what are you going to do tomorrow? Who are you going to get on the bus? And how do you encourage them to give their best from work tomorrow? That's the things that we can control, and that's what we spend all our time on.
Yeah, and that's the day-to-day. Well, I'll come back to, I want to ask you a few more questions in a minute, but I just want to sort of do this before I forget, basically, Martin, which is to remind people that in Trading Up here, we're all about helping people in business learn from others in business, like Martin. And if you have anything you want to ask or tell us, please email us at tradinguppodcast at gmail.com. That's tradinguppodcast at gmail.com. And you can also send me a WhatsApp message or a voice note, and the number is +44 7483 313 842. And if you're watching on our YouTube channel, please hit subscribe and follow us on all the podcast platforms, the one that you favour. And indeed, you can even find my Trading Up Insights newsletter on LinkedIn. I think that's probably just about everything covered in terms of promoting Trading Up. But I've found myself, Martin, kind of each of the interviews that I've done with entrepreneurs over the last year, certain key points have stuck with me that I've tried to maybe learn from, even just in my own job. And in fact, I remember an example, and I think this is really crucial. One of the things I always said to people, say, I have a young journalist asking me for advice. One of the things I always say is don't be afraid to ask a stupid question, because we're always kind of nervous about feeling stupid if we voice something that we're not sure about and somebody else says, sure, you should have known that. But actually, if you don't ask the question, you might leave the room and never have found out the answer.
Yeah.
So be prepared to ask a stupid question, but also be prepared to go and ask for help. And I remember one of the first things I did at the BBC, I asked my new boss when I joined the BBC to do live presentation. It was the Politics Show. It was a new programme being launched. And I'd done other sorts of TV journalism. I'd done other sorts of journalism, but I'd never done a live presentation. And so I said, well, where's the manual for this one? They didn't have your vision book to hand me or any sort of manual. But what they did say to me was, why don't you contact all the people that you think are good at this job and see if they'll give you some advice? So actually I did, people in the BBC. And I spent a day in London. And in the course of that day, I started at the Today programme with John Humphreys. I moved on to catch up with Andrew Marr, who was political editor at the time. I went round to see Jeremy Vine, who was the co-presenter in London at his radio show, and picked his brains, and finished up on Newsnight with Jeremy Paxman. And actually, even to this day, with each of those individuals, I have a sort of key piece of advice that I've kind of held on to. And it is interesting that if you approach people the right way, they generally will be willing to help.
Yeah.
And so do you maintain that philosophy just going forward? Because it's not just the Japanese that you've learned from. You've got a high-end Spanish consultant as well. Tell us about him.
Yeah, that's right. Well, a few years ago we decided in order to think long-term about our family business, we should have an external person on our board. So Rob Healy is the chairman of our board, and
Does he ask awkward questions?
All the time. He's got this knack for asking the most awkward questions. You're like, Rob, would you not just leave that alone? But that's his job, and that's why you've
hired him. Yeah, seriously, it's incredible. Yeah, and so rather than you want the hassle,
yes,
you're willing to have that.
Yeah. And a difficult conversation now avoids fiasco in 5 years' time, and that's what Rob does, and he's got a brilliant way of doing that. So Rob teaches in a Spanish business school called San Telmo, and he invited us to an event in San Telmo, and the speaker was a guy called Manuel, who owns a really large children's clothing company. And he was talking about his family, and he's, I think, 4th generation, and he can see it going to 6 and maybe 7 generations. And I was just so impressed by this. And at the end, I went up and I said, amazing, I love what you've done. I'm in your great-grandfather's position, as 1st generation. How could we do this? How could we set it up to be like your business is 100 and something years old? And he said, well, come on and we'll show you. So he didn't use those phrases. That's my Limavady.
Wasn't his accent, no. You can't do the Spanish accent, no.
And he brought Rob, he and Rob are friends. He brought Rob, Jonathan, Ryan and myself to his office and spent a whole day with us and just showed us everything. This is how we've structured it. This is the documents that we have. This is the type of rules. Here's when another family member wants to leave. Here's when we have to sack one of our grandchildren. Here's what we do if one of them wants to be a painter and the other one wants to be an engineer. And showed us the whole ins and outs of how they have set up their family business that will succeed to the next generation and the generation afterwards. And it was just such a genuine, nice, generous person who's given us a lot of the tools that we need to help us carry forward for another decade or so. And again, what's the payment for that? How much did we pay for that advice? The payment was, we'll go and help some other family businesses if you can. And so on the 4th of December in the Titanic Hotel here, we're holding an event, a non-profit event for family businesses and Manuel is coming to present on what he told us. We're going to share our story. Here's what our family have done. There's 3 brothers. How do we divide this up? If, I have 3 kids who aren't interested. Jonathan's 2 that are super interested. Ryan's got 3 and one of them isn't, 2 of them isn't. And with some other really interesting family businesses coming to contribute to that event, just to share our story. And if it helps someone else, that's good.
Yeah, because, obviously Northern Ireland, a lot of family businesses, and it can be something that pulls business apart. Because, as you say, those issues need to be resolved. It's not just about passing on wealth. Maybe people think about it in those terms about, we want to make sure they pass all this wealth to the next generation. But it's actually about ensuring the longevity of the business, which is maybe coming back to your point, respecting everybody that you're working with, your employees, your customers, ensuring that long-term growth that everybody can benefit from.
Yeah.
But families are difficult things, and so that is something that sometimes people shy away from. Don't really want to talk about that. And maybe it's a first generation thing, and maybe it's an important leader at the top of that, the father figure, and they don't want to consider their own mortality, or they don't want to talk to their kids about it, or they don't want the kids to fight about it. But then the inevitable happens. So you're kind of spreading the word, saying to people, look, come and have that conversation with us.
Yeah, that's right. We ran one in Dublin maybe 6 months ago, and there's a family business member that we would all know, really big, successful business. He's maybe 75 or 78 years old. And he said, I'm delighted to hear all this today because we haven't talked about this at all, And it's that, as you said, big father figure who, I'm in charge, I know all the answers, but, hold on a second. Statistics say that I'll be dead in the next 10 years. And what would become of the business if they haven't had the conversation? And they've been on an incredible journey over the last 6 months and made it that their business will survive and will pass on and will succeed into another generation. And I think that's what's important for us here. People look up, as you said, to Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and all these people that bear no relation to us at all. Is there half a dozen family businesses here that are in the 3rd or 4th generation that are very successful? There wouldn't be 20, there wouldn't be 30 anyway. And
how would that compare, say, with Japan? Statistically,
there's a business in Japan that's in something like its 40th generation of family business ownership. Just incredible. But the upshot of that, the result of that, is that they have this deep connection to their country. They're proud of their country. They're proud of their history. They're trying to set it up for the future generations in the way that some other business structures are just not. Like private equity is successful and lots of people work in it, and that's fine and that's good. It's just not for us. They're thinking 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and then we're done. For us, it's more like 30 years, 50 years, 70 years. Because if we can improve the communities that we're working in, give good opportunities for people. William McColgan was in your podcast talking about their incredible business in Strabane, where they have all the highest tech jobs working in Strabane now, a place where maybe you couldn't get a job 30 or 40
and
years
making
ago.
sausage rolls. Sausage rolls in Strabane, but using the kind of best of kind of management theory and the best of technology to do it so well.
Yeah, an amazing example.
Yeah.
And an amazing contributor to their local community. And that's what I see Seaton Motors as. There was an interesting study done about big stately homes in England. And the big stately homes which have succeeded through the generations are where the head of the family saw himself as a steward of the estate. Not as the owner of the estate, but as the steward of it. And for the family members or leaders of the families who thought, oh, well, now it's mine and I own it and I'm in charge, they end up losing it.
Mm-hmm.
because the short-termism, led them to make wrong decisions, and then it fell away, and the National Trust owns it or something else. But the ones who are stewards of it protect it for the next generation.
Fascinating. So, this podcast, of course, as you know, is produced in association with EY. EY run the Entrepreneur of the Year program, and actually William McColgan, you mentioned, William is on the program, and in fact, you're on the program. So why have you gone for that? What do you think you're going to get out of the EY program? What does that do for you?
It's an amazing program, and we're nominated, and it's my name on it, but it's our family and it's all our colleagues, and it's everyone that contributes to it. It's just as my face on the ticket, I suppose. But
the others get to come along, or the odd one, the odd event, maybe maybe the actual competition event, the final gala night. Maybe you let them come along. Yeah.
So it's an amazing event. We did a trip to Japan actually, and there was 140 other business leaders there, and it was so inspiring. So inspiring. People doing amazing things, like the world leaders in 20 different industries, 30 different industries, all on that one plane, on that trip. And it's inspiring to see where we could go, what we could become. And it was the first time truly that I saw examples of what we could actually do, that I could relate to. Someone that had the same upbringing as me, who had the same kind of family history as me, but is 50 years older, and sitting at lunch with him, and him just sharing his whole story, telling me, here's what we did wrong, here's how we screwed up in South Africa, here's how we did brilliant in France, here's what you should avoid, and here's something you should try. People just giving you open, honest advice in that kind of safe environment of the EY program. I think it's unique because you can't pay to be a part of it. You're not charged to be a part of it. You're there because your peers have nominated you to be there. And it's a real kind of collegiate atmosphere. And
again, coming back to this idea, which I think maybe some people might find surprising, because sometimes we think about business, guard your secrets, hide what you're up to, so the competitors don't get a look in. But here you have an environment, as you say, there was this trip for the EY new entrants, and others who've been on it before, going out to Japan, and you're all sharing, you're all telling, well, this is what I'm doing in my business, and maybe you could consider this sharing, and not for the sake of, maybe doing a sale or some sort of business with that other person, but just simply for helping each other out.
Absolutely. Like, the culture of today's Friday, but I'll not tell you that, that just in my experience didn't exist. Like there's one guy who stood up at the thing, and he said, I'm embarrassed to be here this year because we have made 3 major failures. We screwed up on this, we screwed up on that, and we're just about to screw up on the other. You're going to read about that in a couple of weeks' time. And he stood up and he said this in front of everyone. And he said, but, I think we're figuring it out. And it was so refreshing, because it's easy to talk about the things that went well, but to be so open about the things that went bad, and sharing it was cathartic for him, but it was certainly beneficial for everyone else. It's a great program. I would encourage anyone to be a part of it.
Yeah, no, and it's I mean, as I say, you mentioned William, and we had William on the podcast before, and others I think who've been associated with the program. It is fascinating. So yeah, you just mentioned there, just before we sort of wrap up, you were talking about somebody admitting to mistakes and stuff. What do you do about your own mistakes? There's bound to have been some. We've talked about challenges, but maybe not times where you've really messed up. What do you do when that's happened? Have you any examples, or how you've kind of reformulated? You can be honest. You're among friends here.
Yeah, well, if it's just me and you, I'll tell you.
Okay, there's nobody else listening. Yeah, don't worry.
We're actually really, really, really open about our mistakes. And we do that very purposefully because the culture in what we're trying to do in healthcare and manufacturing is we want people to be experimenting all the time. And everyone's scared of failure. Like, people are scared of failing their exam because you need to get an A in your exam. People are scared of making a mistake. So in our morning meetings every day, we have this part of the meeting where it's called improvement opportunities. And people go, okay, what improvement opportunities have we from yesterday? Someone puts up their hand. I made a chair the wrong colour. Should have been blue. I made it red. How thick am I? And we go, oh, brilliant. Well done. That was great. Thanks for making it the wrong colour. And thanks for telling us. How did that happen? Oh, maybe the sheet wasn't clear. Maybe the software had a blip in it. Maybe I'm colorblind, and when I went to lift blue, it looked like red. Maybe the red stored beside the blue, and it was moving so fast that I didn't consider. Brilliant. Well, there's 6 things that we could do better. So we're very open about sharing our mistakes because they're improvement opportunities. And we're really open about sharing that and talking about it because no one sets out to do a bad job. No one sets out to do a bad job. People, if someone makes a mistake, it's usually my fault because we haven't provided enough training, we haven't provided the right tools, we haven't provided enough time to do it properly, we haven't explained exactly what we're trying to achieve. So it's not anyone's fault. It's just it went wrong, and how can we fix it?
That's interesting. But actually, when you first said, improvement opportunities, it sounds like one of those kind of euphemisms. I've got an improvement opportunity here, as in you've messed up. But actually, when you then explain it, it's for real. I mean, and everything you've said suggests there's none of your vision stuff, none of your mantras, none of the kind of Tierney theory, if you like, is kind of unreal, because when you explain it, I can see it actually.
Yeah.
You follow it, you mean it, and it does actually have an impact.
We had a brilliant example. We had a new lady started in the office, and her job was to process payments. We were at a trade show, and at the end of the trade shows, they always come around and say, "Can we sign you up for next year?" And I said, "No, I don't think we should do that next year. It probably wasn't good enough for us." But what did they do? They sent the invoice anyway. And the invoice came into the office, and I happened to be there, and I saw it, and I said, "Oh, we're not paying that because we didn't sign up to it. We're not going to that show. That's the one that we're not doing." The person that I shared that to was off on holidays, and this new lady started. And what was her job? Her job is to process payments. So she lifted the invoice, she put it onto the computer, and she paid it. I came into the office that afternoon, and she was crying, floods of tears. "Oh my God, I've made the most terrible mistake. I've paid out all this money and I shouldn't have done it," and whatever. Now, I wasn't best pleased about it, to be honest. I didn't congratulate her there and then, but I took a breath and I said, "Okay, thanks for telling me. How did it happen?" She says, "Well, my job is to get the invoices and put them on the system and pay them." And I said, "Well, when you put it like that, you did your job well. Thank you."
Mm-hmm.
But how could we stop that happening again? Well, probably we should have a system that matches the PO to the invoice, that goes for approval, that the approval is done, and then when that goes there and is set up for payment to somebody else. Very good. Well, would you like to set that up? And she says, "Yeah, I would know how to set that up." Well, what's the effect of that? The effect is she personally will never make that mistake again. No one who's sitting in that chair ever again would make that mistake again. And she has probably told that story to other people saying, "I made a big mistake, and it was brilliant because I got to do this interesting project as a result."
Yeah, and long term, of course, who knows what, if you'd continued with a fairly loose system, you could have paid a bigger bill in error, sometime later.
Or worse, you say, "How terrible are you? You did something wrong. You're a terrible worker. I'm going to fire you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that." The next time that person makes the mistake, they'll hide it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they won't tell me. They'll say, "Oh, I made a mistake, but you better not mention that." And then the mistakes are growing and you know nothing about them. And that's what happens. That's unfortunately the culture in lots of other places. So that's why we're purposefully very open about them, And some of my mistakes are really good ones.
I noticed you've been telling me about other people's mistakes. Well, we'll maybe let you off. So tell us about your mum, who was the inspiration for the business. And unfortunately, then you lost your father at quite an early age. What age was your father when he died?
He was 52.
And how long into the business were you at that point?
Probably 4 or 5 years in.
Yeah. So your father was this big man that you'd looked up to, trained with him, if you like, on the building sites. Yeah. Your mother was the inspiration for the particulars of the need, but your father's know-how helped get you started as well. So that was a difficult period then, because again, we're talking about the timings of this. You're post-financial crash. Yeah. Money's hard to get from the banks at that point, if not impossible. Who knows, what the wider environment's like. You've lost your father. How did you get past that, and where do things sit today with your mum?
Yeah. I don't think it matters what age you lose your father. It's a big thing whether he's 52 or 92 or in or in between. But I suppose I'm proud of the legacy that he's left behind, in that he's 4 children and now 8 grandchildren, and left a good mark on the world. And my mother's she's an amazing woman. She's an occupational therapist. She's the first occupational therapist to set up a private business in the island of Ireland, way back in the year 2000. And just a few weeks ago, she got awarded a fellowship of the Royal College of Occupational Therapy, which is one of the highest, or the highest honour you can get in her profession. So we're very proud to have her as her mother, as an OT in her business. It's lovely to be able to share these experiences with our family, our sister, our brothers, my mother.
And her knowledge informs an awful lot of your kind of research and development, doesn't it?
Yeah. It was her clinical insight that said, if we got a chair that done A, B, and C, that would help a patient with dementia. If we had a chair that done this, it would help a person with cerebral palsy. That was her insight. Then she led the clinical research into her products to prove its efficacy. And we've done studies now in Australia, Scotland, England, Ireland, Northern Ireland, America, different universities and different partners. And she's been the head of that. So she keeps threatening to retire, but we haven't seen that yet. And we hope she doesn't for another day or two.
And what do you think she makes of you and your brothers and your sister, and what stage you're at? Because they made a brave decision as parents back in the day to let you leave school, not go on to university, because there would be a lot of people being, well, look, best get the degree first, son, and then decide what you do, because that would have been perhaps the more obvious route.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what does she make of it all now? What do you think she says? Does she ever tell you what she thinks?
Well, she said to my father one time, we should have had more children because they're turning out to be useful. We must have been a liability for a long time. But
Very good.
My mother went to university and really values education. My wife's a doctor of physical therapy. My two brothers are married to two women who have degrees and, really value education and how important that is. But when I came home at 17 years old and I said, I think I'm going to leave school tomorrow, in December 2007, my mother said, well, if you're going to leave, why don't you just leave? Like, don't be waiting till your exams are done, and don't wait till your A-levels are finished, and don't wait till if you're going to leave, just leave tomorrow. And I thought, okay, maybe I should. And that was her attitude. She said, just, well, if that's what you're going to do, like, I thought if I stay and go to university, we'll end up doing Seton Matters anyway. But if I leave sooner than that, maybe we'll get a few years ahead of ourselves. And she says, yeah, if you're going to leave, just leave.
I mean, what's interesting there is, it seems to me, even though you've gone to Japan to discover your business philosophy and you've brought it back and you've implemented it, it's ultimately about empowerment and respect and devolving, delegating authority down to the point where it's most useful and can be implemented most quickly. Here you have a key decision. Your mother, she knew that. She did that then. She could have said, nope, mother's rule, off you go to uni, son. I've been to university, and then you can make your mind up. You're too young to make these sorts of decisions. So she had the respect for you at that point.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way, but yeah.
Well, she could teach the Japanese a few things then.
Absolutely, yeah. And, I've got 3 children, and they're smart enough. They're doing good in school. They're only young, primary 2, 3, and 4. If they came to me at 17 and said, I'm 6 months away from graduating, I'm the head boy of the grammar school, I've done well in my exams all the way.
Is that the position you were in? Were you academically doing well, head boy and all that? Yeah.
I got a B one time and I was fucking ripping with myself. I done okay in school and was the head boy and all this. And, I was just thinking, if that was my son, would I say, John, just stick it out for 6 more months? Like, what, 6 months? But no, she said, well, if you think it's the right thing to do, do it. And if you're going to leave, you should just leave. It was brave. It was, I suppose she treated us with a level of maturity that probably wasn't deserving of a 17-year-old.
It seems like it was. But look, it's been a great chat. I've loved it. Lots to learn from. And just finally, we've mentioned the turnover figure at the moment, and it seems to me your business is so much more than just numbers, but numbers are useful. So you're sitting at about 26 million at the moment. Do you have an idea? Do you put a number on things for where you want to be in a few years' time, and where do you think it is? Because I'll bring you back and I'll hold you to it.
Yeah. I'd be glad to do that, because in our Vivid Vision, we published it 3 years ago. And in that Vivid Vision, we said we want to do 26.5 million by the end of 2025. And to be honest, we probably didn't know how to do it or how to get there, but we put it in a printed book, and we give it to all our staff and all our suppliers and all our customers. And we said, this is what we want to do. And now we're 6 months early, but we've hit that target. So we're very pleased with that. Our next goal is to double that again, 52. So that's what we're aiming for.
When are you coming back in to confirm that then? How many years have you got? 3 years?
We've said 3 years, 2028, December 28, to double.
Right.
But
we'll get the booking in now then.
If we can do it sooner, all the better.
Great stuff. Well, look, Martin Tierney, thanks a million for chatting to us on Trading Up, and please join us again soon on all your podcast platforms. Hit follow, and on YouTube, please hit subscribe. See you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.